everyone. We're going to be doing session 5 of the Golang Discord bot workshop series.
Okay. So, today we're setting up the OpenAI ChatGPT for the Discord bot. So first, we have to create our OpenAI account if you don't have it. So basically, we're trying to make a token for the API, and then we're going to use it to make our bot.
So I posted these notes on the Discord server. You should be able to go to this document, and the link is right here. It'll take you over here.
So just go onto the first link and make an account.
Yeah, basically, create an account and then log in, and then you'll create your API key.
And the second link is right here. So you click it, and you'll log in.
It will give you some time to do that.
Once you get to this part, just click create new secret key, and then let us know when you get there.
Okay, after you got your API key, you're going to paste it into your config JSON file.
You remember the config JSON file, it's this part. So just create a new section called open API key. You can name it whatever you want as long as it's like explanatory, and then paste your key in there.
With the quotation marks.
Yes.
And just like make eye contact when you're done or something.
Yeah, if you have a config.go file, you also have to change that stuff.
You have to add in the, if you remember from the config.go file, there's a variable section. Just add in a variable for your OpenAI key. And then you have to add into the config struct as well. And then down here, once you actually read it, you have to set your variable to the config thing. So it's just 3 changes. This one, and this one. So let me know when you guys finish that. Good. Okay. You can move on then. Okay. So the second part that we're going to do, because we're using OpenAI, their GPT model, we have to get a package for Golang for that. If you go in the Google Docs, there's a single command line that you're going to copy and paste like this. It looks like this. Go get github.com/pull request inc/go-gpt3. So just go ahead and install that. All right, let me know when you guys finish that. Yeah, okay. After you do that, the second thing you're going to do is like normal, because there's a new command, right? We're going to make a new file for it. Just call it gpt.go. You can name it whatever you want. And then in here, we're going to create, the first thing we're going to do is a package mux, right? Because we're in the mux package. And then just do an import. You don't have to fill it out right now though, because Golang automatically does that after you save. The second thing you're going to do is create a function. Call it whatever you want, but make sure it inherits from a mux like normal. Really, you can just go to any other command you've already made and copy that function template. I'm just going to type it out here. So just name it GPT, and then the usual parameters are the Discord go.session, and then DM Discord go.message, so that we have the actual message to work with, and then contact, so that we have more information regarding that message. So this is the basic part. Just gonna hit save real fast, and you can see that it imports the Discord for me.
And of course, command is also in the doc, so you can copy off of that.
Yeah. Okay. So now here's the actual GPT part. So the very first thing we're going to do is create a client variable. it's going to allow us to communicate with the OpenAI API. It's similar to how we made like a bot client to communicate with Discord bot API, but this time it's for OpenAI. So we're going to use our GPT model dot new client. And then here, the parentheses, you're going to put in your API key. So if you don't have a config thing, just paste it directly in quotes. But if you have config, just call it config and then whatever you named it. In this case, I put OpenAI API key. And then if you hit save, it should import GP3 as well as your config. Now the second part, we're going to use the client, or no, actually, okay. Right now, we're going to simply say response error and set that equal to get response, pass in client and context.content. And I will explain right now what this is. So get response is going to be a helper function. We're going to define it right here soon. And basically all we're going to make it do is use the client and the content, which is basically just the, what did the user say, right? We're going to use that and the client to send a request to the API and get a response back. And once we do, we'll store that into this variable. But if it fails, we'll have like an error. So we're going to just do an error check on that. So if the error is not nil, I mean something went wrong. So we need to handle that. We'll just say fmt dot println error. Okay, Control S to get the fmt in there. Okay. All right. So now we're going to program our get response helper function. So the first thing you're going to do is create the declaration for it. We're going to say func get response. Make sure it's lowercase because it's a helper function, not global. And then our first parameter is the client, which will inherit, or which will be the object of type GPT client. And then we're going to take a question or request or whatever you want to call it. It's a string, basically what did the user prompt us for? And then we're going to return a response string and an error of type error. But now, the first thing we're going to do here, this is a slightly new. We're going to create something called a strings dot builder. Essentially, what the builder does is it allows you to create a sort of a buffer. So you can just add on to that buffer string, whatever strings, bytes, etc. And at the end, you can just compile it into one string. So it's helpful for something like an API where you're trying to get like the response back. Okay. So quickly just control save it so that you can import the strings module up here. Okay. Okay. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to say error equal client. Now this is it came out right here, completion stream with engine. It's a function that will allow us to send a request. Now it takes a few parameters. We're going to go over each of them. The first parameter is going to be called go context. I just realized I didn't actually define that yet, so we'll go ahead and quickly do that. We're going to say go context cancel equals context dot with timeout context dot background, and then you can put whatever value you want. But during my testing, I found that 60 seconds is good. Essentially, what this is going to do is if the API takes too long to respond, if it doesn't do it in 60 seconds, then just cancel it. Like something probably went wrong, and we don't want to keep waiting on the API. So we're going to do defer cancel. What this does is we're going to wait for the entire function to finish, but if it takes too long, just call the cancel function. Right. So that's what that does. So the second parameter is to be GP3 P3 dot Vinci 003 engine. All this is, if you hover above it, you can see it's just a constant of type string. So it just says, you can see there, it says text dash DaVinci dash 003. So all it does is it tells the function that we're going to be using the DaVinci model for our text engine. The next thing we're going to do is say GP3, okay, dot completion request. And what this does is it will allow us to set a few fields. So completion request is a struct. type struct, and it has like, you can see it has like a few things you can set over there. So the main one we want to set is prompt. Obviously, we want to tell them what did they used to say, and prompt is a array of strings because there could be like a field of prompts. But in our case, we only have the question that the user set that we're going to pass that in. The next part of completion request will be max tokens. Now, tokens are a unit from OpenAPI, which allows us to tell the API the maximum amount of tokens that we're going to use. The unit just measures like the amount of text information that it can handle, because you don't want to overflow what you sent to the API. So in our case, we're just going to set this value to 3000. But the thing is that max token takes in an integer pointer. And GPT-3 has a good, right here, a good helper function for that. It'll turn the int directly into a pointer. So, and then the second one is a little similar. It's called temperature. And we're going to use gp3.float32 pointer. And we're going to put a variable value of 0.5. Now, what the temperature variable does is it's sort of like the randomness for the text engine. So the higher that this value is, the more random it is, and the lower it is, the less random it is, right? So in testing, I found that 0.5 is like a good middle area for enough randomness where it's not too crazy, but it's still like good enough. You can play around with it, see which one you like. So yeah. And then after, that's it for the completion request. But for our completion stream with engine, we still have a few more things to set. The last thing is the function, which takes in a type GP3 completion response, which is basically the opposite of completion request, right? They're both structs, but this is what will get passed through after it gets a response, and this function will allow us to do something with it. So for our sake, we're going to just convert, or we're going to grab the text of it like so. If you hover over completion response, you can see that there's a field called choices, which is an array of type completion response choice. And completion response choice has a few values, one of them being text, which will give you the direct string. And the string is what we want. So we'll go ahead and get that. Now for our string loader, we're going to use write sp.write string and pass in text. So what this does, like I mentioned earlier with the builder thing, it's like a buffer. So it'll just take text and add it onto that buffer. And then later we'll compile it all together. And then just put a comment there so it's no error. Okay. And this whole function right here returns an error if something went wrong. So we're going to have to obviously check for that. So we'll just say if error nil, something went wrong. But in our case, we don't want to print it out like normal because we have a function, right, that returns something. So if something went wrong, we're just going to say return an empty string and also error, because our function returns an error type, right here. Earlier, right here, error type, right? So if something went wrong, just return the error, let it handle it. To an array of string, okay, hold on. Oh, is it because I use parentheses? Okay. For string array, you have to use brackets. Oh, I deleted it. It's bracket. So question, comma, question, comma. Okay, cool. I'm sure that. All right. So after we do this, this handles the errors. But if nothing went wrong, it'll skip that, and then we can go ahead and make our actual response. So we'll just say response, which is we defined it up here in our output response to string. So we're going to set it to sp.string. This is what compiles the buffer into one string. And then I believe the API actually puts in a new line somewhere. So we have to go and format that out. We'll just use trim left, pass in response, and then we want to get rid of the /n. After we do that, we can just go ahead and return it response, and then if there's no errors, we'll just say no. And that sums it up for this function. So now we'll go up here and back to our this part. You can see the error is gone now because we defined it. So okay, for this part, this is up to really you how you want to do it. Essentially, we're gonna send the response back to the user. The way I did it is I set it as an embed. I'm just gonna copy that. It's in the notes if you want to use it too. But you feel free to return it however you want to return it. Like embeds are not the only way to send it back. I just thought an embed will make it look nicer. So yeah, this is the embed I used. I just put a title, ChatGPT. I gave it a color of, I think it's like a greenish sort of color. And there's a thumbnail, which I put an image of ChatGPT's logo. I set the description to response, and then I just send it back to the channel. Okay. Here.
Okay, so now that we have that, we're gonna want to make sure that the bot isn't saying like bad words or like pinging everyone in the server. So in order to do that, we're gonna go above your GPT function and add two structs. One type record struct, and that's gonna include a word string, and a language. Because you can swear in more languages than just English. And you're gonna have another type profanity struct. And we're gonna fill that with an array of records. Right, so then you're gonna wanna like go to this JSON file that I'm gonna post in the Discord. And well, Fox copying that.
So this link is in the notes, by the way. It's essentially just a JSON I found online from GitHub, which has a long list of dirty words.
Yeah.
Ooh. So we're going to use the Golang HTTP to get that.
So yeah, you're gonna get that, and of course you're gonna error check. And as we're gonna be done with the response, you're gonna use defer to close it. So we defer response.bug.close. And afterwards, we're going to be using creating a new object with our profanity struct, and let's call it profanity response. P response profanity struct, and we're gonna like run new decoder to create a decoder on the contents of the response. So if error is JSON.newDecoder response.body. And run decode to decode the contents into a struct object. And that's going to be the first part of moderation.
Real quick though, I want to point out this is like a new sort of like format of an if statement you might not have seen before, the semicolon right here. Essentially, it's just we're gonna create a variable over here. In this case, it's called error. We're gonna set it equal to new decoder and dot decode. And then semicolon just means, okay, after we made that variable, just check a condition using that variable. In this case, we're saying if it's not null, right? That means something probably happened. So we'll just go ahead and do log fatal. Actually, in this case, we can just use ffmpeg dot print ln error.
Yeah. Somebody has a yacht.
So is everyone done with this part? Okay, cool.
Okay, so now we're gonna actually make the helper function in the moderate. So we're moderating it, right? And we need like a function to check if it actually contains any profanity. So we're gonna make a helper function called moderation that's. Okay, and this function is gonna take a string and the profanity structure that we made, which is pres. And it's gonna return a Boolean to see if it actually passed the test. And it's also gonna return a string, which is actually our error message. And now we're gonna basically create a for loop that goes through the entire profanity struct. And basically, inside our profanity struct, we're gonna go for every single structure word, and we're gonna check if it matches anything inside our message. And we're gonna use the function string contains. Basically, it just like goes through the entire string and see if it contains anything. It takes in two parameters, the word and second word you want to check for. And then if it does, we're gonna return false, which means it failed the test, and also the error message that goes along with it. And then if it passes, we're gonna see if it passes, that means like the for loop is over, and then we're gonna return true and an empty message. Oh yeah, we also need to check for the ping message to see if the bot will ping everything.
You can just have whatever you want as your return false message. So that's gonna be our message.
Yeah, so this one is checking for the ping, which is just the add character. Right, and now if it passes all the tests, then all we have to do is just return true and an empty error message. Just nothing.
Does this make sense, everyone? Oh,
And now we actually have to implement the moderation test. And all we have to do is actually just run moderation test, the function we made inside a GPG function. We just have to check if a function return a true statement, which means it's fast. And then if it returns false, we're gonna give an error message instead.
so as you can see, I'm once again using the semicolon thing. I'm creating two variables here, success and the error message, which comes from the moderation test. And then I'm going to check the condition of success, if it's true or if it's false. So if it's true, we're going to just do normally how we do it, which is taking the embed description or however you're sending it to the user and just updating that response. But if it's false, we'll just instead of sending it to the response, we'll send it to the error message. All right, so it seems there's a very clear distinction between string and strings. So string is a type, strings is a package. So I messed that up a bit, but yeah. Seems do I saw another? But I think all my errors are gone now. Okay. So then I go to the main.go and we're gonna add our ChatGPT command to our router. To do that, it's pretty simple. Just do this and then name it whatever you want, and then give it a description, and then call the right function. So save it, and that should be it. So then I go ahead and test it now. Okay. So we're going to quickly go ahead and test our command. It's going to say something like say everyone, and then it should give you the error. Let's not do a ping because it found the at symbol in our message. Test around with the temporary temperature variable so you can see how random it gets. Currently I have it set to 0.5. You can change it to like 0, 0.3, etc. 1, see how random it gets. And you can maybe try to add some more filtering to it, maybe try a different JSON or play around with the embed. But essentially, yeah, that's basically it. Does anyone have any questions on this? What? Is it on the JSON?
Don't have to.
Do we even need the moderation?
In theory, the moderation should work, but
I think they already built the moderation.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm now okay. Maybe it's your temperature variable. Maybe because it's so random, it's like not doing it. Try setting it to 0 and try again.
Oh yeah. I'm 0.9.
Oh yeah, that's probably why.
To implement the GPT API, that you can also give previous responses to it. It's like not only the current response, but you're also giving.
You would have to do that in your own code. I'm not sure if that works with the API because to be fair, OpenAI doesn't actually have a ChatGPT API implemented yet. The only thing we're using calling a ChatGPT is a DaVinci model, text model. So it just continuously, it's like Siri, just send it, comes back, send it, comes back. There's no like correlation to the previous responses.
Maybe you can just like make a string array and just keep stacking.
Yeah, basically, if you can like manage to somehow create your own implementation in your own code that keeps previous responses and uses them, that could work. But that's kind of like writing your own AI, so it might be harder. But yeah, it's possible probably.
By the way, where do you put the if else for the moderation?
Let's check here. It would be when you're sending your response. So what is that? Here. Like, okay, so the way I'm doing an embed, right? So I'm saying embed.description equal response. But if it failed, then do the error message.
Oh, okay.